The Great Terrace. You know, I've been thinking about terraces for the last couple of weeks, but it dawned on me that I've never really shared with you the Great Terrace, the biggest of the terraces here in northern Washington. So yes, I'm between Chelan and Pleistocene this morning. I think I dreamt about terraces last night. So got up, said goodbye to Liz and Bijou the cat. Didn't even have any breakfast, just drove straight up here a couple hours to get up to this stretch. And I've got an exposure here inside of the Great Terrace. And then if I swing you around the Columbia River, and then you're looking south, let's make some observations on a big scale and a small scale. And that's the humble goal of this short video. Thanks for joining us. Okay, just flipped you around. I'm at mile marker 6. There's a nice little pull out here on this side road. I'll put the GPS in the location down below if you want to come out here and see this for yourself. But let's get our bearings first of all. So we're looking south. That's US 97 heading south. And in the distance, if you know the country, there's an option to take that little road, which is a kind of a ramp up onto a flat past the Lake Chelan Airport and then the town of Chelan. Or if you're heading south on 97, you can stay on 97 proper and continue along the river all the way to Wenatchee. Okay, zoom out, boy. This is the Great Terrace. And it's impossible to give you the scale of this Great Terrace from one location. And no, I don't fly drones, and no, I don't have all sorts of fancy tricks with Google Maps and everything else. I mean, I'm just a teacher out here kind of making sense of a few things. But I like this location because this is the elevation of the big flat through here. And yes, if we swing then to the east, why not? Let's come around the corner. So the second half of this short video is going to look kind of carefully at some of these boulders. You know, when I talk about a valley being filled with marbles, these are the marbles I'm talking about. They're not exactly steelies, you know, out in the elementary school playground. There's some big boys that are being dropped in here by running water, but that's not our topic. It is our topic, but I don't know why I said that. Okay, so I've been driving around this morning on top of the Great Terrace, but you can't, when you're on top of it, you can't make sense of the scale of what you're looking at. And I don't know if this is the right place either, and it's hazy today and everything else. But can you make out the sense that we have this flat that's on a major level, and then we see hints of it across the way? We're kind of looking into the haze. Of course, I think your eye is drawn to those incredible erratics that are all basaltic erratics. Believe it or not, that's not really our topic today. Those are haystack boulders that are more part of the Waterville Plateau and the Okanagan Lobe as it was sitting on top of that plateau. But even though it's tempting, we're not going to focus on those today. But we're just looking again for hints of terraces, and the highest flat, the Great Terrace. And now we're looking north around the corner. Again, I can't pick one spot to give you a great sense of the whole thing, but if we get back on 97 and head north, we get to Pleistocene and then Brewster, and then we continue north to Omak, where we were with Jerome Lessman a couple weeks ago. Obviously, I'm still thinking about that visit with Jerome. How much longer am I going to be thinking about this Pleistocene stuff? I don't know, probably not a whole lot much longer, but I do think that I want to, just continue to explore these thoughts on my own. I know you want to go across the way and look at some rocks, and we will do that. But if I give you a close-up shot what I'm hoping you can see is that we have lots of bedrock. You know, that's bedrock of Chelan megmatite. That's bedrock of the crystalline core of the North Cascades. Not our topic. But here are hundreds and hundreds of vertical feet. And depending on how far up into the Cascades we go, miles and miles of lateral extent of this fill, of this Pleistocene fill, these piles of marbles. That's this terrace discussion that we've had. And I don't want to keep repeating myself, but driving up here and just thinking about this, I mean, I was listening to a podcast and I finally just turned the podcast off. I was just thinking too much, daydreaming too much about this terrace thing. I continue to work out these ideas, at least for my brain, and my latest thought is, as a Pleistocene geologist, do you view each of these terraces as local batches coming from the side channels? Or do you make a case that the side channels are minor and the main story is all this material is coming down the Columbia? You know, in addition to the GPS location, I'm going to put a link to a couple of blog posts by Sky Cooley, who has also been thinking about this terrace business recently. And Sky did a nice job of compiling more than a century worth of discussion, observations from geologic reports going back more than 120 years ago. And I just get the feeling like everybody's just kind of made casual note of this terrace, but not this Great Terrace business, but have not, you know, made it the focal point. So I may be out to lunch, but I don't think so. I think this Great Terrace is still a major puzzle. Okay, how am I going to do this besides just kind of giving you a... So let's just get down to this level here. There's a granite. There's a gneiss. There's a granite. There's a gneiss. There's a gneiss. There's a granite. This is what we talk about. This is what we mean when we talk about crystalline rocks. You know, there's no basalts in this pile. Even though the bedrock up here high to the east of us, continuing all the way to Spokane, is nothing but German chocolate cake, is nothing but Columbia River flood basalts. We don't have those basalt. Okay, now did I just... No, not even that one. Looks like a gabbro. I mean, these are rocks that are more akin to the North Cascades. And so I think the casual thought, I don't feel like scrambling all the way up there. Look at the size of some of these. The casual thought, I think even amongst geologists, is that you go, okay, you got a pile of marbles. Again, the marbles are pretty big, aren't they? Come on, boy, get up the slope. Come on, boy, get up the slope. Oh, that's beauty. My goodness. Draw my hammer. I'm so impressed with these phenocrysts here. These megacrysts. Wow. So you know this is almost impossible, right? About what I'm going to say. But is it possible to get a well-rounded geologist tackling this problem? Someone who knows bedrock geology in British Columbia, someone who knows detailed bedrock geology in the North Cascades. And if you kept finding boulders like this with what appears to be a rather distinctive look, whatever unit this happens to be, I don't know what this is. couldn't you really talk about the origin of some of these flats as using the lithologies within the deposit very carefully? What I was about to say before I got excited by that boulder is that I think generally geologists go, okay, you know, this stuff just casually, I'm a Pleistocene geologist now, this stuff just casually looks like, you know, rocks that are local, bedrock that's local. And that this is stuff that just sloughed off of the mountains to the immediate west. Okay, here's another way to say it. Are portions of this Great Terrace a bunch of local stories, or is it a national story? Do you know what I mean? Is this a national AP story, or is this some sort of local county reporter, this cub reporter coming in and talking about this stuff? What I'm trying to say is, are these all Canadian rocks that got dumped in here with a major event? Or are these portions of what appears to be a consistent Great Terrace a bunch of side streams bringing in local rocks that give a false narrative that this is a big regional story? Still stumbling with the right words, but maybe you get what I'm saying. My God. Just in one, you know what I'm doing? I've just stopped at one little road cut along one portion of this Great Terrace where there are millions, I don't know, tens of millions of these rocks. So on one hand, it's kind of overwhelming. Like, how you're supposed to tackle this, and I guess that's the issue, that unless we're all 23 and at the peak of our powers physically, and we don't have a family, and we don't have a day job, and we can just devote, you know, incredible amounts of time to this, how can you get at some of this stuff in a meaningful way? I think we need a bunch of young geologists here. I think we need a bunch of PhD projects. Just talking about me personally now, you know, but I think it's true for lots. Once you get into the next phase of your life, there's just other things competing for your time. Including the geologists 120 years ago who were here. They eventually went on to a career where they had other things and office work and everything else. So that's why Sky Cooley appeals to me at the moment, because he's saying, you know, I've got the time, I've got the interest to just spend time at these outcrops and really make detailed descriptions of each of these locations. But it's not the glacial till story that we were looking at last night. That was just last night. I was out with you near Ellensburg looking at those mini terraces. And by the way, that's an interesting comparison, I think, because last night, what did I call it? Glacial terraces near Ellensburg. That was an alpine glacier with outwash out in front of a series of advances and retreats of the Yakima Valley Glacier. We're back to the ice sheet here. This is not alpine ice. This is a much grander story. And the frustrating part for me just right now as I'm doing this with you is that there's no way I can give you the scale. It's just impossible to give you the scale. Oh my heavens. You might, if you're just a rock lover, just a plain old basic rock lover, this might be an interesting spot for you. Public road. I'll give you the GPS location down below. It's Wednesday morning at whatever it is, 11 o'clock in the morning. Not much traffic. Quite pleasant, but the size of these boulders and the variety of the boulders, like, have we seen many that were the same? Almost every sample appears to be different. Of course, now it looks like we got 3 that are similar. You can imagine the grunt work and the time necessary to inventory number 1, each of these terraces. I guess you can do that in the office. Maybe that's what kind of Jerome's working on right now. And others, I'm sure, have done something similar, where they take a look at each of these terraces at different elevations, not just the Great Terrace, but the terrace levels that are lower, and have kind of worked out how much they agree and how much they do not agree. But then comes a harder part from my point of view. Oh my God, look at those. I know it's not the topic today. Look at those dark haystack boulders. What the heck? I have to say it. So there are no basalt haystack boulders on this side. This Great Terrace is noticeably lacking in these dark brown milk duds, basaltic glacial erratics. And the interpretation, not mine, none of these are mine, I'm just reporting the work that's been done. Then, oh my God, I gotta come out here late in the afternoon sometime. Holy shit. This is exactly the wrong light to see these things, but look at that. The interpretation is those milk duds were deposited directly by the Okanagan lobe, the Okanagan ice sheet, the same Okanagan ice sheet that Jerome Lessman's been talking about, that crept over the border from BC. But they're all basaltic over there because it's German chocolate cake with the basement rock over there. And that's true from here all the way to Spokane if you're north of Withrow, Washington, if you're north of the moraine, which we are. Looking east, by the way. So look at just the difference on 2 sides of the river. That's a whole nother way to do this. We've got hundreds of vertical feet of crystalline rocks stacked up like a bunch of marbles, and the marbles are big. On the west side of the Columbia River, oh, I like this. But then we cross the river and suddenly the erratics are completely different, and they're not stacked 500 feet thick, 500 feet deep. God, can you see that? Let's try this again. How often do you see a major river with the west bank and the east bank being completely opposite of each other? I think the answer is not that often. Holy shit! If for no other reason, this is the reason right here, catching you late in the video. I think I've stumbled onto the main narrative of this spot. Yeah, we're looking at the Great Terrace on the left, but look at how un-Great Terrace-y it is on the right, on the east. Oh man, I never really made that connection before till right now. But before I go too crazy with that narrative, that the west side of the Columbia here, we're close to Aswell, by the way, we're close to Wells Dam, south behind us is Chelan, we're looking north. Before you get the impression it's nothing but Great Terrace granitic stuff and crystalline rocks on the west and none of it on the east, I can say we pull the old switcheroo when we're down there around the corner. When we get in the Chelan area and just south of Chelan, then the Great Terrace shows up on both sides. And in some cases, along the Columbia, the Great Terrace is only on the east side and not the west side. Wow, I like that. Okay, that's enough screwing around. By now you're used to the routine, which is just kind of rambling, but hopefully with a purpose. Hopefully continues to be interesting to you. The last thing I'll say, I promise, I hope it's clear to you. I'm just trying to get geologists interested in this stuff. This feels like an overlooked thing for far too long. And there's many future projects that can be done. Whether you're a professional geologist now, or whether you're a geologist in training, aka student, or whether you're frickin' 11 years old and you just want to get into geology, this is the kind of stuff that has not been figured out yet. And that's my only role with this. I hope it's clear. I'm not the know-it-all here telling you everything. I'm the opposite of the know-it-all, just asking a bunch of questions. That's it. Thank you. I love you. And goodbye from Northern Washington at milepost 6.